Hey, what is up guys? Welcome back to another video. I've decided to break down the Homelander versus Soldier Boy / The Boys fight because honestly, it was one of the best fights in the entire series in general, you know. Like the boys aren't like the fights in The Boys aren't necessarily like superhuman. Like they don't have like that, Marvel DC flair where they're punching through buildings and stuff, but it's a lot more grounded. It's like, significantly more grounded, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. But this was the first fight where like it really took things off the ground, like quite literally in some cases. So yeah. And I also want to talk about how Homelander is much stronger than we think he is, and he kind of sort of won parts of this fight multiple times. And the only reason he lost was because he was surprise attacked, and he was jumped by three supes, two of whom are incredibly physically capable. So, let's start.
Deal's off.
So we've seen what happens when Homelander lasers people, and pretty much they just are burnt, split in half, they're dead. They're pretty much gone. So we see that Butcher has gained a superhuman level of endurance to be able to not get literally split into pieces. However, if you notice this, Butcher gets knocked out for like a few seconds. So he's pretty much knocked out the entire first half of, or not first half, that sounds bad. He's knocked out the entire time Soldier Boy and Homelander are talking, and the first sort of couple seconds of their fight. Like, it knocks the wind out of him. So he's durable enough to not die instantly, but he is not durable enough to be able to handle a shot like that.
Oh no. I'm the upgrade.
So Soldier Boy is immediately taken off of his feet. This means that Soldier Boy doesn't have the physical ability to hold back Homelander's attack. Now, realistically, if you want to get technical here, Homelander could have just picked him up and thrown him into space, but no one wants to see that sort of fight. It's pretty boring. But we know that Homelander can at least throw him into space. We also know, as mentioned before, that Homelander can, at the very least, survive in the high atmosphere. But if we're taking what he says literally, Homelander can survive in space. He says to Edgar in one of the scenes where they were talking, when he was commenting about the view from the 7 tower, it's just, you should see it from space.
You should see it from
space. So
space.
we can assume that he possibly has the ability to either go so high above, extremely high above, the atmosphere, or even into space itself. Not only that, but it shows a clear difference in movement speed. Homelander's attack was too fast for Soldier Boy to even react to it, which can make a massive difference in a fight. Now we see the big difference between movement speed and combat speed. In a lot of breakdowns, they're typically always perceived as the same, which I always find is weird. If a person can run at light speed, they should be able to punch at light speed, which is sort of somewhat makes sense depending on who you're talking about. But if you actually just stop to think about for even a split second, when you're watching MMA fighters or anything like that, they can punch really fucking fast, but they don't necessarily move super fast. They're not moving as fast as they're punching. So I always found it weird when they broke things down that way. Like realistically, someone like Goku could probably punch faster than he can run and fly, and he can fly at light speed levels of speed. In this case, even though Homelander is extremely fast, it's pretty obvious that Soldier Boy's combat experience, actual combat experience, has allowed him to give himself this advantage. Not only that, but he saw Homelander use his laser vision, and the second Homelander tried to use it on him, he immediately deactivated it by throwing an uppercut and causing him to laser the air or the sky instead, or the ceiling. He is able to dodge Homelander's first set of attacks and counter with a combo of blows. And it has been stated that their durability is comparable, with Homelander edging out just a little bit more. this was the part of the fight that really showed how much more powerful Homelander was. Although their durability may be comparable, their physical strength is not. Although it's teased at first that they might be equal, with them catching each other's punches, Soldier Boy is sent flying a second time after the initial attack back into the same wall. And while he's reeling, recovering from the attack, Homelander begins to choke him. It starts off with them holding him with both hands, and then he switches to one and begins to lift him up higher. Homelander says, you really had me going there. But you can see that Soldier Boy is trying to stop it, and he's using both hands, and it is not working. Now, Soldier Boy could have used his, fucking nuke chest power by this point, but also Homelander could have probably, flown away. But this really shows the big gap in physical strength between them. Homelander is much, much stronger. Arguably, probably more than twice as strong. Now we see Butcher has come out from behind and has lasered Homelander in the chest. This comes as an obvious surprise attack towards Homelander, the same way Homelander suddenly lasered Butcher in the chest, surprising him as well. But notice how the reaction to how they were lasered were very different. Homelander instantly recovers. Now it looks like he may have taken damage, but in reality he hasn't. His suit is what takes the damage. Homelander doesn't take any damage. That laser vision blast was the equivalent of a hard push. Homelander is clearly extremely surprised because Butcher got superpowers out of fucking nowhere. Now let's go back to when Homelander lasered Butcher first. It took until the middle of Soldier Boy and Homelander's fight for him to fully recover. That is a pretty big gap in time there, where if this was a 1v1 fight, Homelander could have easily killed him through a number of different ways. But because Homelander thought he had died, because, he thought he was a normal human, and he was in the middle of fighting Soldier Boy, this gave Butcher the ability to recover. So yet again, almost exactly like Soldier Boy, it starts off with Homelander at a disadvantage. His physical combat skills is not nearly as good as Butcher's, so he's immediately taken advantage of. Butcher begins to land more hits, while Butcher also dodges all of Homelander's physical attacks. However, as the two start, bashing each other, and Homelander actually gets a couple of hits in, you can actually see them looking at each other and smiling. Homelander hasn't taken any damage. While Butcher, on the other hand, you can actually see his mouth bleeding, which means he has taken damage. However, Butcher's one crazy motherfucker, and he keeps on fighting. We know that Butcher can take a lot of damage. We've seen it in Season 2, where he goes to a mosh pit and literally starts a fight for no reason and gets his ass beat. He already had borderline superhuman durability. Now just amp that up with the Temp V. And even though his durability may not be on the same level as Homelander or even Soldier Boy, his tenacity allows him to keep fighting despite the damage he's taking. Butcher's combat IQ is also much higher than Homelander's. He actually uses his laser vision to distract Homelander, giving him a split second. This split second allows him to create an opening where he's able to actually punch Homelander. The other thing to notice is Soldier Boy. The fight between Butcher and Homelander, or at least this initial bout, only lasted for a little under a minute. And we see, towards the end, Soldier Boy has just recovered, slowly getting up from the rubble, from Homelander's attacks. Again, this is another big difference between the two. Recovery speed. Homelander can almost instantly recover from any attack Soldier Boy and Butcher throw at them. But Homelander, when he attacks either one of them, it takes them a while to recover. Now, it's not very long. It takes about a minute or two for them to recover from his attacks. But in the middle of combat, that makes a huge difference. The next thing we want to look at is the beam struggle, or at this point, the laser beam struggle. Now again, it's disguised to look like they're equals. that the power of Homelander's heat vision and Butcher's laser vision are equally matched. But again, it's a little trickier than you think. The same way with when Butcher was attacking Homelander and punching, and they were fighting each other and punching each other. Again, we saw Homelander take no damage, but Butcher's mouth was bleeding, which it wasn't previously doing that before, prior to that scene, which shows that attention to detail matters to these fight directors. It was a very subtle hint at showing the difference in physical strength between the two, that Homelander was stronger, by a lot. If you look back at the actual beam struggle, look at the face, look at the reactions. Homelander has that similar toothy grin. Now, I'm not saying Homelander wasn't trying, I'm sure he was. But we've never seen Homelander really, truly try, because he's never had to. But Butcher knows what it's like to go beyond, and that's exactly what he was doing. I mean, come on, have we ever seen Butcher scream, trying to do something to put his effort into everything? That's what he was trying to do. You can literally see him just scream as he is shooting his laser at Homelander. He's not just trying to stop Homelander's laser, he's trying to take his head off, and it isn't working. At this point, Soldier Boy has recovered. He grabs Homelander's cape and throws him against the wall. Homelander is disoriented enough for Soldier Boy to get one hit in, before he immediately blocks and counters. In that split second, Butcher steps in and throws a body blow, and follows it with an uppercut. Again, we see the difference in recovery speed, because after those two attacks, he instantly recovers and dodges their double punch, I think. Whatever it's called. He immediately punches Soldier Boy and knocks him out cold. Now again, Soldier Boy is going to recover from this, but it knocks him out long enough that Homelander is actually able to grab Butcher and choke him, this time with both hands. The two are trying to choke each other out, but yet again, we see the big difference. We see Homelander actually trying this time, and Butcher trying to choke him at the exact same time. Now, it's a little hard to tell who is stronger and who is winning, etc., but we can assume that Butcher choking Homelander pretty much was doing nothing. But it's not super clear. Maybe Butcher's tenacity made him, stronger, slightly stronger, strong enough to choke Homelander, much better than he normally would. And that same tenacity allowed him to resist Homelander's, full choking strength. It sounds so weird. After all, as we all know, mental strength matters in a fight. It can quite literally change your physical ability in that said fight.
Do it! Joey! Get out of here! No fucking way!
At this point, Huey comes in and punches Homelander and does fuck all nothing. In fact, it doesn't even send him back or anything like that. It just kind of shoves him. It's a very light shove. And that's assuming that the force of his punch was stronger, because he was actually setting up for a punch, stronger than when he hit that Russian guard and punched a hole through him. And that attack did nothing to Homelander. Now, Huey's able to distract Homelander for a few seconds, just enough for Butcher and Soldier Boy, who by this point we can assume has fully recovered, again taking some time to recover from Homelander's initial punch. Both of them grab Homelander and throw him onto the ground. At this point, Homelander has no leverage whatsoever. Anyone that's ever done wrestling or anyone that's ever been pinned in that way, where you're flat on your chest, somebody is on your back, on your neck, with both your arms flat out, grabbed, you can try and wiggle, you can try and do anything, but in that position, you are completely powerless. Not only that, but these are three superhuman soups, one of which is rumored to be nearly as strong as Homelander, by Homelander's words himself. Another person absolutely abhors and hates Homelander, who has been given physical ability, physical strength to somewhat compete with him in a physical match. And of course there's Huey, which you might think, oh, Huey, he's not that much of a help, but having an extra set of hands, no matter how weak they may be in comparison at least, still makes a huge difference. In fact, we actually see Huey grab his arm and twist it so that it's flat, so he loses that leverage, because he knows all Homelander needs is one arm to shove them all back. Let's watch that again, but this time in slow motion. He pushes all three of them back, Butcher, Soldier Boy, Huey, with the equivalent of a shoulder nudge. Now, I want to make it clear that Homelander was trying his absolute best. He felt like he was about to die. He was being killed by people that hated him. Soldier Boy, who thought that there's no way that I was going to get replaced. Butcher, who literally had his wife sexually assaulted by Homelander. And Huey, who had his girlfriend physically, emotionally, verbally abused by Homelander. All of them want Homelander dead. They are grabbing onto him at 100% of their strength, maybe even beyond that, trying to push him down, to keep him still. Homelander, at this point, had never lost a fight. He was never on the losing end. He was angry, he was enraged, and he did everything he could. This was everyone doing 100%. 100% of everything they could possibly do. So now we know the level of Homelander's physical strength. When he was in a disadvantaged position, attacked by 3 supes that were all on top of him, pushing down with 100% of their power, with one of those supes, Soldier Boy, being comparable in strength, stated by Homelander himself to be almost as strong as him, we now know the reality is, Homelander's physical strength is significantly above any 3 of them. With all 4 of them going at 100%, Homelander was able to push back all 3 of them and escape, knocking back Butcher, Soldier Boy, and Huey. Meaning, at 100% of his physical strength, he is stronger than all 3 of them at 100% of their physical strength, combined. Throughout this entire fight, Homelander had the physical advantage. He was stronger, more durable, had more powers, etc. While the opponent, the boys and Soldier Boy, had the combat advantage, having more numbers, having more experience, having to actually struggle in a fight. So, in this fight, could the boys have won? Absolutely. Assuming, of course, Soldier Boy's radiation chest beam could actually damage Homelander, or at the very least weaken him, assuming, then yes, they could have won, because they had the tactical advantage. And Homelander went into the fight underestimating all of them. The Butcher was still human, he already felt like he was physically stronger than Soldier Boy, and he was, as he proved it in the first initial bout. They had 2 surprise attacks on Homelander, when Butcher lasered him in the chest, and when Huey came out of nowhere and punched him, distracting him long enough for them to jump him. Combat-wise, everything was against Homelander. He was fighting more experienced and more well-trained combative opponents. Soldier Boy, who literally fought in World War II, and I don't know how many fucking conflicts afterwards, and Butcher, who seems to have military experience given, conversations he had with MM, and at the very least, combative experience that allows him to fight against supes while he was still normal. And yet, despite all of that, despite all 3 of these supes fighting him, hitting him with full intent to kill, the only thing that came out of that entire fight was a bruise. It kind of reminds me of the Thanos fight, where they're all piling down on Thanos, he defeats them, it's just him and Iron Man Iron Man is able to just barely hit him with this grab, rocket punch, and all it does is a small nick. All that for a drop of blood. That was this fight. All of these people died just for them to bruise Homelander. Now, physical damage, Homelander has, again, barely taken any, but mental damage is where it counts. Homelander has never lost, ever. And although in this fight, on numerous occasions, Homelander actually knocked out Butcher and Soldier Boy, knocking them on the mat, for a few seconds, some even as long as almost a minute. I mean, if we're going MMA rules, or hell, even boxing rules, those would count as knockouts. But since we're going the murder route, since they're trying to murder each other, I wouldn't necessarily call those wins. But there are a clear indication that in a 1v1 fight, or even in a 2v1 fight, Homelander would still win. But having that third person, having Huey, makes a huge difference. No one really thinks about how big of a difference fighting multiple people are, but the more variables you add, the more complicated the fight gets. So in short, this whole fight actually shows us a number of things. A fight between Homelander and Soldier Boy, a fight between Butcher and Homelander, a fight between Butcher and Homelander a fight between Butcher and Soldier Boy versus Homelander, and finally a fight between Soldier Boy, Butcher, and Huey versus Homelander. Homelander versus Soldier Boy, Homelander wins. Butcher versus Homelander, Homelander wins. Homelander versus Butcher and Soldier Boy, Homelander wins. But having Huey makes the whole thing different. Huey's maneuverability, his teleportation, actually is what changed the whole fight. Because Huey can teleport other people, his usefulness in this fight is immense. While Soldier Boy and Butcher are fighting Homelander, Homelander may start to win, but Huey can teleport in and get a couple licks in. And even though it's not enough to hurt Homelander, it's enough to knock him off of his feet for the other two to get an advantage. And for any big, massive, destructive attacks, like a killing blow or a laser beam that we see strong enough to knock out Butcher for a few seconds, Huey can run in, grab them, and teleport them out, evading the attack. Which means Homelander has to focus on him first, which will give the other two the chance to attack Homelander, which is exactly what happened in the fight. Huey changed the fight entirely. Without him, Butcher and Soldier Boy never had a chance against Homelander. Now again, this is Homelander not taking things too seriously. In fact, when he goes after Huey, he starts walking towards him. Aside from his initial fly, he doesn't necessarily charge at his opponents. He sort of just saunters towards them or speed walk. And now that he's lost, two things can happen. Homelander can break down and become weaker, or he can become even stronger than he was before. And although his physical strength may not change, his mental strength will. And as mentioned before, that can make a massive difference in a fight. If Homelander begins to see them as actual physical threats, which now they are, he can start approaching the fight in a number of different ways. Now again, to be honest with you, Homelander could defeat any of these guys because none of them can fly. He can throw Butcher or Soldier Boy into space, and I doubt Huey has the same durability as the other two, so he could just be killed similarly to any other soup. It all depends on how Homelander is going to fight. Anyways, this has been my breakdown of Homelander and the boys fight, and Soldier Boy. Easily my favorite fight, with Stormfront and the girls, Starlight, Kimiko, and Queen Maeve being my second favorite. And that one was also pretty interesting because it parallels this fight in many ways. It starts off with Stormfront destroying Starlight and Kimiko individually, and then when the two of them sort of recovered and worked together, she was still beating them, and until Queen Maeve, a more physical equal, similar to Soldier Boy, arrived, the three were easily able to overwhelm Stormfront and beat her enough that she was forced to escape. Which is great because it actually shows somewhat consistency between the fights. That high-tier soups can easily take on 1 to 2 other soups, but when faced with 3 opponents, the fight can turn very quickly. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed my video of a full in-depth fight. If there are any other fights from literally any other media that you would like me to do, please put it down in the comments. It doesn't have to be The Boy. It can be from movies, TV shows, YouTube videos, whatever. Alright, see ya.